Hey friends, it's Simon Hurley and welcome to another video. Today I am so excited to be using some dies from Brutus Monroe that are absolutely stunning and create 2 cards using a stamping technique using your dies. It's a whole new way to use your dies and I'm in love with the results. I hope you guys enjoy. Let's get into it. Alright, so for the first card, I'm going to be using these butterfly wings dies from Brutus Monroe. And I love these die sets. They're nice and large, so you can use only a few of them to cover a full card. And I also love that he has the detailed layer that cuts out the butterfly, but then also a shadow. And that consists in most of his die sets, so it makes you able to do a lot of different techniques like we'll do today. So I think I've shared a die stamping video in the past, but this time instead of stamping with the blade, I'm going to go in and stamp on the back side of the die. So I flipped it over and I'm going to take my Simon Hurley Create inks and start inking it up. Now you don't want to be shy with your ink here, give it some good pressure and swipe it around so you get a nice color coverage. And then I'm just going to kind of do a 3-color blend on the back of this die. So I'm doing Bee Sting, Prom Queen, and a little bit of Guppy to finish it off. Now once I'm done with that, I'll take this in my hand and I'm going to give it a nice spray. Sometimes I say mist, but this time the water should be beating up, like you should be able to see lots of the ink moving because that's going to help it transfer. It's a metal surface, so it's not like a rubber stamp where you only need a little bit of ink. You need lots of water to get this to transfer nicely. So once I'm done with that, I'll press it onto my stark white cardstock, and then I'm going to grab a rag, and you'll see a little bit of excess that's kind of seeping out because of the amount of water that we added, and I'm just going to blot down with the rag as I apply pressure so that any excess gets sucked up into the rag instead of into the cardstock. That'll keep your image nice and clean. And I'm going to do the same thing with the next butterfly using some greens and blues. I went in with Psych, Clear Skies, and Midnight Snack and just kind of went in a stripe pattern across the butterflies. And I love the different color blends I was able to create. Then again, I'm going to go in and spray it down until that color starts moving and press it down onto my cardstock. And notice I haven't picked up the other butterfly yet. I like to wait until the color kind of seeps into the cardstock until I'm ready to pull it up. So you'll see here, I'm going to again press it down, give it good pressure with the rag, and you'll see the other butterfly starts moving. That's what I love about my stark white cardstock, is it's very nice and absorbent, so it'll absorb within 30 seconds, and then you're able to remove it and it'll come nice and clean. Now, I used my inks on the back of these dies. I would be careful if your inks usually stain a stamp because you're going to get stained dies. If that doesn't matter to you, it totally doesn't matter, but mine clean off really easily with water, which I really like. Now to step this up another step, I'm going to go in with my die cutting machine and a rubber embossing mat. That's that little rubber thing you see there. And then I'm going to take my piece and spray it. This time I'm just misting with water. So you can kind of see I waved my paper through a little mist of water. And then I'm going to take the dies and place them down. Now, this would usually cut, but when I have this rubber mat underneath, it's going to apply pressure into the rubber mat and only emboss the image, which I think is super cool. So we're going to get more detail on our watercolor that we've created. And then for the Spellbinders specific machine that I have, it tells you to put this blue plate on top and run it through, and there it comes out with all of that amazing texture and dimension to it. And you can feel all that awesome embossing in person. It just looks stunning. So once I'm done with that, you can also go in, and like I said, I love these outlines because if you want to, you can always cut them out again. So here, I cut right around that, and it leaves a little bit of a white border around it, which I really like. Next, I'm going to go in with the Christopher's Sentiments die set, and again, I love this one because they're nice and large and a really great handwriting font. But I'm going to go in and just heat set this just a tiny bit for like 3 seconds. This will help kind of remove it from the adhesive a little bit easier. I love that tip, but be careful because sometimes they can get a little bit hot. But that helped me remove it from the adhesive with a lot of different dies. So I'm going to go in and stack these dies up. I cut out this shadow layer in white cardstock, and I'm going to layer these up with a little bit of adhesive. I usually apply a little bit of the matte medium down, and then I wipe a little bit off with a paper towel so that it doesn't seep out the sides, and then I'll start layering up my die cuts. You can see with this white die cut, I kind of press in between my fingers to make sure everything is nice and aligned, and that comes in big handy when you have something really dainty like this high. I'm going to go in and again lightly pinch it between my fingers, and that helps to line things up, and I love liquid adhesive for this because you get a little bit of playtime to make sure things are lined up. Now moving on to the background, I'm using Prickly Pear cardstock, and I'm going to go in and do some heat embossing for a tone-on-tone look. So I'm going to go in with a little bit of clear embossing ink on this painted stripes background stamp. This one is one of the first stamps I released, but I think it is so versatile and so easy to use on a bunch of different cards. So I'm going to apply a good pressure all the way around on the card base, and then I'll throw over a layer of clear embossing powder. So once I've done that, I'm going to go in and heat set this, and you'll see the magic that occurs. When you heat set it, it turns nice and shiny, and it'll turn just like a color or a shade darker than the actual cardstock. So it just adds lots of interest to the card without taking away from the background color, and just another little fun detail. Now to adhere the butterflies down, I'm just using a glob of liquid adhesive here, and I like to just apply it to the center because I want the butterfly's wings to kind of pop up a little bit, so adhering it down in the center is a great way to keep some dimension on your card. And then I added the hide down, and that finishes off this card. I love the fun stamping with the dies, and how you are also able to go back in and do some embossing to get that really cool texture on them as well. So next I'm going to go in with the Heart Petals die set. And again, this comes in handy when I want to stamp with the back of a die. I'm going to go in with my heat tool again for about 3 to 5 seconds. Be careful because it does get a little bit hot, but then I'm able to easily remove it from my background, and it's not going to have any adhesive residue on the back. You usually wouldn't have to do this, you can usually just pull them off, but sometimes stamping with the back of the die, I want it to be really nice and clean, and the heat loosens up the adhesive just a little bit. So I'm going to go in again with my Simon & Hurley Create inks and apply some different shades of blues and purples down onto the heart. And this one's a really nice large surface, so you can get a lot of different colors in there. Now you'll see when I'm stamping down onto the metal die, I usually just go in and kind of swipe my ink pad a little bit. That helps to get more ink coverage on it. It kind of goes against everything we say with stamps, but it helps to get a good coverage of that ink color rather than just patting lightly. So then I'm going to go in and spray it down so you get a lot of that color to bead up on the surface, and then I'm going to press it down onto my cardstock. You'll see it's going to start seeping out a little bit there, and to keep the image nice and clean before I do any pressing, I'm going to go in with my towel as I press down to remove any color before it seeps into the cardstock to keep the image nice and clean. Then I'm going to go in, and before I lift up the die, I'm going to go back in with my ink blending tools and stencil over the top of the holes that are still there. So this is going to create a darker image where it would have usually cut, and then it's going to create a lighter image where we had our watercolor stamped image on the back. So it's going to create almost kind of a letter impressed look, which I think is super cool. I'm literally showing like every way to use a die without actually die cutting in today's video. So I'm going to go back through with the exact same colors over the same places where I put them and ink blend through, which is going to give a more concentrated look on top. So then I'm just going to finish it off here with a little bit of Tropical Tango in that last area, and it's time for the final reveal. So by this time, everything has pretty much sunk into the cardstock, and when I lift it off, you get a nice lighter watercolory kind of effect underneath, and then where I stenciled over top, you get a darker, more concentrated look. Now, I cannot go in and die cut this again because it's not a mirrored image. So when you rotate it to the back and stamp it like that, the butterflies were a mirrored image, so I was able to do that. But for this one, I just had to quickly go through and fussy cut it, which was not a huge deal. I love these scissors from Fiskars for fussy cutting. They've got like a spring assist to them, so they make your hands not tired. So if you don't like fussy cutting, these are going to be the scissors for you. They're life-changing. So to add a little bit of interest to the card, I'm taking the Love die that came in the same die set, and I'm going to die cut the shadow layer out. This is a fun way to use the shadow. So then I'm going to piece it back together and put some low tack tape on the front, and I'm going to add adhesive to both the top and the bottom piece, but I'm avoiding adding adhesive to the shadow in the center that spells out the word love. Then I'm going to adhere it down onto the front and center of my card, and once everything is adhered and pressed down, I can remove the tape on the surface, and it's going to leave the love shadow unadhered. So then I can peel it out, and that's going to leave a great spot for the love word die cut. So I'm going to go in and I've layered up the love detailed one in black cardstock, about 3 layers, and I'm going to use some clear sticky ink and dip it into my clear embossing powder. I wanted to kind of make it the focal point on the card and make it nice and shiny. So I picked it up with the tweezers and I'm going to heat this up. I love like the thin line design of this. It's absolutely stunning. So I'm going to heat it up, and then I'm going to go in and do several more layers of the clear embossing powder to make a really nice thick layer that stands off your card. And I love this method because there's no drying time involved. So then I'm going to go in and add a little bit of liquid adhesive onto the back and place it right in between there, which leaves a nice little white border around it, but I love how it's cut out. Then I'm taking the Sentimental flower stamp set from Hurley, and I'm going to use the Miss You sentiment. But I've taped off the Miss and just inked up a U. Then when I pull off that tape, it's going to make the Miss nice and clean, and all I'm going to stamp down is U right beneath the love. So that finishes off that card really quickly and easily. I love the watercolor stamped look and how we blended through it to get a darker result on this card. It's so stunning. If you enjoyed this video, comment down below which card was your favorite and give this video a big thumbs up, and consider subscribing down below to become a part of the family and never miss another video like this one. Alright everyone, I'll see you soon for another card making video. Have a great day. Bye!